So essentially what I put together in my mind is this visual of what it means to get psychic info. And I know that I've given a visual before. This is a totally different one, and I feel like it serves a completely different purpose than the visual that I created before. That the title of that video is like Visual Example of Psychic Channeling. This is like same but different, almost like an upgraded visual of that, I guess. That ironically enough uses a stick figure. So not upgrade it in the sense of technology, but upgrade it in the sense of relatability. So the purpose of telling you where it was going is because part of what I put together is about kind of everything coming full circle. You'll see that at the end, and that was the journey that I was on when this was coming to me, was going to the house that I grew up in and then coming back to the house that I live in now. So it was me literally going through that example as this info was kind of coming together for me. So essentially the visual is using like 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D. We're going to use those dimensional references for this. So 1D would be, and essentially I'm going to explain this and then I'm going to show you me drawing it on my iPad, but that part's not going to be my face, it's just going to be my hand, because I'm not tech savvy enough to do the split screens yet, don't know how to do that. So I'm going to explain it and then I'm going to show you while explaining it again. So 1D would be just thought, just a blank white screen, okay? But because there is nothing, there is also everything. So everything conscious-wise resides there, okay? 2D would be the computer version, the coding, okay? So not quite reality yet, but the coding. So if you imagine reality as a projection of the blueprint, of a projection of like a programming sequence, 2D then would be what's put into the computer, the programming. So in order to see a tree, and it's much more complicated than the black and white way that we presume it to be, but everything that exists is to help us understand the energetic makeup of everything that we're not able to see. So imagine 2D as this is me typing into the computer 269428973, and because I type that in, I see a tree. That's what it projects into my reality. So the 2D is that programming, that coding. 3D then is what we're able to see with our eyes. It is our reality that we live in. 4D is our reality that we live in, but almost like you're able to then access this computer that allows you to figure out higher consciousness. So imagine a computer, you're in the 3D realm. Imagine yourself as just a stick figure. You're in the 3D realm. One, you have to find this computer. Two, you have to figure out the access code or the passcode to get access into the computer. And then 3, once you open this computer, it's all in codes and it's in symbols, and what the heck, how does this make sense? In order to get that 4D activated in a way to understand that coding, you relate it to your own life. So your personal references, experiences, examples, connections, things in your life is what gives you the understanding of how to understand that programming in the computer to make sense of those signs and those symbols. So that is the 4D. Then the 5D is when it all just comes together and you don't need the computer anymore. You can just say, I want it this way, and it appears that way because you have become one again with collective consciousness, and you have eliminated the need for the computer because it's once again within you, that highest consciousness. So psychic channeling, or any type of channeling then, would be, so imagine there's a blank screen, blank white screen, that's 1D. 2D is the computer, 3D is you as a stick figure. Psychic channeling is when you as a stick figure get access to that computer, find the computer, get access to the computer, and figure out what the codes and symbols translate to in a way that you can then make sense of it in the 3D. So psychic channeling is you accessing that computer and either two things. You looking in from the screen of the computer and saying, oh, I understand this symbol relates to this. This has been a reference for this in my life, so it's a reference to this now. Or you can get skilled in sending your consciousness, which is what I talked about in the other example, sending it into the computer and looking out from a different perspective. So either you can look in, understand, comprehend, or you can kind of send your consciousness in there, look out through the computer, through the symbols, through the analogies, through the references, and put it together that way. Some people do a mix of both. Some people use tools to do this. Some people don't. In essence, it's the same thing. We're sending our consciousness and we're interpreting the symbols, messages, signs, what have you, based off of our own personal references, experiences, and what have you. So I'm going to do a little drawing, but it's pretty much just summing up that last little bit that I said about the stick figure, just so you can kind of have a visual. And then, I don't know, I just feel like I learn better with visuals. It's going to be a very simple, not well-drawn visual, so bear with me. But I felt like, I don't know, I feel like that's a really good example of how to access those things, because you are able to advance your consciousness to see the computer, get the password for the computer, and then put in the work to understand the symbols and the messages, because it translates to each person in your own language, in your own symbolism, in your own, this experience taught me this, I reference this with this. That's different for everyone. And it's because we're learning that program, we're learning that makeup, that blueprint of our own system. You are the universe. This is your version of the universe, just as the next person has their version of the universe. We all coexist in the same, but at the same time, we perceive things differently. Perception creates your reality. What you focus on, where you put your energy, directs what happens in your reality. So looking at it this way, you have something to strive for in terms of, I don't need to do what this person does or that person does. I don't need to understand it in the way that this person does or that person does. I'm learning how to use my own language to understand my own blueprint to get myself through the obstacle course of an energy blueprint that we each need to go through, that I talk about in the blueprint. I'm going to show you the example now. Okay, so to kind of put this in a visual perspective here, 1D would be just the blank screen, nothing there. Then 2D would be essentially a computer program, something that would be hypothetically typed into a something that could be referenced similar to a computer but much more complicated than that. That is the example that we're given to understand what's going on. But 2D would essentially be the numbers or letters or whatever that's typed in to create the projection that you see. 3D then would be the stick figure, and that would be you. So all of this exists, but there's a price to pay to have the human experience, and that it's you must forget so that you can go on the journey of remembering, so that you believe that you're capable of all of this. So for me, that's why it's very important to spread the message that you are able to raise your consciousness, and you are able to get the messages, and you are able to access this dimension, even though we've been temporarily cut off as the price to pay for the human experience. So then 4D would be you plus, so this we cannot see, okay, because it doesn't become reality to hear. So this is happening in almost like an invisible way, right? So now in the 4D, this becomes visible. This is supposed to be a computer. Doesn't look like that at all. It's not a robot. This is a computer. So essentially 4D is when you in your physical reality find a way to access this in a physical way, or in a way that can be physically seen by your consciousness and then translate it back into this dimension. 5D then would be all of them encompassed together. So essentially it's this, but you don't need the computer because it's within you again. You're able to just directly access that higher consciousness again in the 5D. So when I was saying about how I was going home to the house that I grew up in and coming back and it was full circle, essentially on the way to my parents' house, I was putting together the theory, and then on the way back home, my son was in the car. He was talking for most of the time, but then kind of was quiet for a little bit. And when he was quiet for a little bit, something that he had said, and I don't remember what it was, but made me think of doing this as a stick figure example. And I don't know, I thought that was kind of an example of what was actually happening, because this is describing what happens in the unseen and how it's produced to the seen and coming full circle. And that's literally what I was doing, was driving to my parents' house. I came up with the unseen format of this, right? And then as I was on the way back to my current house now, which ironically enough is in another state, so another state of consciousness. When I left my parents' house to come back to the other state of consciousness, when I left where I had came from originally to come back, is when I put the physical example together in my mind. So I just thought that was pretty relevant, because it's the literal physical example of this happening as I'm channeling in the information. So I just wanted to share this. I thought it was a good example. Hopefully it kind of helps you, I don't know, see that there's more possible. And I just wanted to add a little Easter egg in here for those who are still watching. So I'm working on right now recording a pretty long video that's reading a document that is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the whole document to you.
Hello friends, so today we are going to be talking about the saying as above, so below, and what the heck does that actually mean for you and for your life? How does that relate to your day-to-day? How can you use that for your benefit? And really, what does it mean on an individual, personalized level? So that's what we're going to be going into today. I'm going to have you visualize some things today, and I'm going to put on the screen examples of what your visualization should kind of fall in line with. So up in that top left corner, we have a little Alexa, or a little robot that basically has all the information that exists contained within it. On this screen, we're going to say that on the left is as above and on the right is so below. So we are hooked up to this clear, ultimate consciousness that harbors all of the information and knowledge that there is to know. We are essentially plugged into it. And in this example, we are going to imagine that our consciousness is what travels through this maze, through this labyrinth, through this obstacle course of life. So we start being one with that Alexa up in the top left corner. One with that consciousness that knows everything and contains all that there is to experience and know. Our consciousness leaves that Alexa and it starts to travel down this cord, and it goes into our brain. And since it's as above, so below, it also goes into our physical experience. And that is what we will be talking about today. So essentially, in this example, our consciousness, the goal of our consciousness is to start up in that Alexa, travel down through the labyrinth in our mind, and as we go through each energy center, we get closer and closer to that white dot in the middle of the head that's on the left side of the screen right now, that's representing as above. What do I mean? I mean that we start externally and we work our way all the way into the core of who we are. Once we get all the way through this labyrinth on the left and make our way into the center of that white dot, it is essentially allowing us to re-access and remember fully everything that we were connected to when we were up top connected to the Alexa. So it is us earning back that full consciousness, earning back what was already within us the whole time, but we had to travel through this maze or through this labyrinth to be able to access it once again. So as we are traversing through this labyrinth, getting closer and closer to the center, it is also mirroring that same reality into our day-to-day, real, physical reality life. So we start at what is the top, is that crown chakra. We descend from the crown chakra, and then we go one by one, making our way through these gates, which are blocked energy centers. We have to ignite them and get them spinning, kind of like one of those doors that's just a spinning door and you go round and round and round. That is what we need to do to our energy centers to be able to move through them and get closer and closer to the center of this labyrinth. So as our consciousness moves through this labyrinth closer to the center, our physical experiences mirror that as well. So we descend starting with that crown chakra, then we have our third eye, then we have our throat, heart, solar plexus, sacral, root, and then we go back up on the ascension process. So the ones I just listed were the descension process. And then we go in the ascension process with our root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown. And when we get back to the crown on that ascension process, it is very similar to us making our way back to the center on this left-hand side of the screen, making our way back to the center and reconnecting to that higher consciousness, because we've earned our way through the labyrinth by going through all of the energy centers, and we've made our way back to be able to reconnect to all of that information that is available to us. Just wanted to lay the foundation, and I felt like looking at it this way is a very valuable tool to kind of help you understand where you're at on your journey a little bit better and have you have a goal in mind, because you know that you're returning to that higher consciousness. You know that once you return to that higher consciousness, you'll be able to visualize and see paths and doors that were not previously available to you. As I was driving, I was thinking, because in my videos I've mentioned how music kind of really has been the tarot before tarot cards were in my life. So oftentimes I'll kind of bounce back and forth my thoughts and the music and try to put certain things together. So anyway, that happened, and I came up with this analogy for the third eye, right? Okay, so think of your regular eyeballs as being able to see externally and being able to see internally. Because, I mean, technically, in a way, when you are thinking, you're looking into your brain and figuring out what's in there and then speaking it. So you're seeing it in a way. So think of your regular eyeballs can see externally and internally. And then there's a different choice. There's like, think of when you look internally, there's like this room, okay? And on the room, there's like everything that's in your brain is on the walls of the room. But then there's this little whiteboard that's like on the corner of the room or something. And if you look at that whiteboard, not a whiteboard, a computer. Let's put a computer. That makes more sense. So there's a room, an empty room. There's all the walls have everything written on them, almost like a crime scene investigation thing, like on the walls where you can see everything that's in your brain. But then there's a computer in the room as well. So you can make your eyes, your regular eyes, look externally or internally. When they look internally, you can look around the room and see what's on the walls, aka your brain. Or you can figure out the password, which would be ascension, to activate the computer in the room. And once you can access the computer in the room through being on the ascension process and activating your abilities, which everybody has, then you can see then you can have your eyes look at the computer in the room, which means you're using the information from your brain, but you can also access that collective consciousness and everything that's in it. So that's kind of visually what you can imagine is happening as you activate your psychic abilities. It's you getting the password to that computer that's in the room that your eyes could see were there. If you wanted to look for it, you could ignore it too, but you can also see that it's there. And then you have to go through the ascension process to figure out the password, put in the password from the ascension process. And that unveiling, seeing beyond the veil, is the veil of the screensaver of the computer that disappears once you put the password in. I don't know. I felt like that visual may help. Hopefully that's understandable. And just as I'm finishing that, it's 11:11. So have a good day.